the Viking.
To say that I'm a Viking is a misnomer. My ancestry is Scandinavian, but there is a lot of misconceptions about Vikings, that they were bloodthirsty savages intent on rape and pillaging. The majority of the population back then were simple farmers, traders, poets, you name it. In fact, the word Viking was originally a verb. To go a Viking essentially meant that you were going on an expedition.
Born of such savage stock as would make even the mightiest tremble, he sizes up the new world in which he finds himself, as a hunter to his prey.
Even though my family does come from Norway and Denmark, at least on my father's side, I really can't deny that I am Canadian. My grandfather came to Canada when he was quite young. When he was 17 years old, he joined the war effort and fought in the Italian campaign. After that, he met my grandmother in Denmark, and he brought her back to Canada, to St. Catharines, where they had my dad and my aunts. So to me, being both of Scandinavian stock and Canadian, that qualifies me as being a Vinlander.
Like his forebears who braved the high seas to sail to the New World with colonization and domination in their hearts, so he too ventures forth with martial skill and determination.
It's a well-known fact now that the Vikings, or the Norsemen, were the first Europeans to lay their eyes on the North American continent some 500 years before Columbus set sail. They were coming to gather resources that they couldn't find in Greenland. Wood for ships, iron for tools and weapons. Mostly, however, I believe that they came out of a sense of curiosity, of exploration. Ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do. To honor that spirit of curiosity, spirit of adventure, that those who did actually go to Vinland had. And that's why at the moment I find myself a Viking in Korea.
Observe the violent transformation overtaking him as the battle rage that runs through his veins takes hold and he goes berserk.
Another reason that I have come to Korea is for financial reasons, especially student loans. These days, it seems to be getting harder and harder for young people to find meaningful work for a decent wage. The same can be said for my Viking and Norse ancestors. Harsh winters, lack of resources, and a growing population meant that it only made sense for them to go abroad to seek their fortunes.
Even the most stalwart warrior must feed. What shall our young Viking feast upon today? Roast venison, suckling pig, the still beating hearts of his enemies?
I really do like Korean food. I just really don't like seafood all that much. That can make choosing cuisine here slightly challenging. The Vikings had to eat a lot of seafood. They had to eat essentially whatever they could scrounge up, even things like lichen. When they did go abroad, they were often met with hostilities and an unkind welcome, especially in Britain and continental Europe. In fact, there's a prayer that monks and holy men of the day would often utter: "God protect us from the fury of the Northmen." Dealing with xenophobic attitudes these days is also a challenge when traveling overseas. Culture clash and anti-foreigner sentiments. On top of that, the language barrier can also be a problem. I have to admit, I can read the runes, but I still haven't quite figured out Korean. For the first time in my life, I actually am an illiterate barbarian. The only place I've ever really felt threatened in Korea was in a place called Itaewon. Ironically, that's where most foreigners hang out in Seoul, especially the military.
Observe as he stares down into the murky depths at the entrance to the underworld. Will he have enough coin to pay the ferryman, or enough courage to face its mighty denizens.
The chief of the Norse gods was named Odin. He was the god of magic, poetry, sometimes war, but he was also known as a great traveler and seeker of knowledge and wisdom. To me, that says a lot about what my ancestors valued. We have a lot of challenges today that they didn't have back then, and vice versa. We have fast transportation systems, fast communications. What they didn't have was all the red tape that comes with visas and passports and going to other countries. But to me, a true Vinlander, a true Norseman, carries on and meets the challenges of his day using whatever tools he has at his or her disposal.
And so, having slain his foes and traveled leagues in search of fortune and adventure, he comes at last back to his kin and in search of the heart.
A lot of people might say that I'm looking back on my ancestral past with romantic eyes. But I think we're missing that a lot these days. The notion of the heroic to inspire us. It's not what our roots give us that's important, because then we would be bound by them, but rather what we take from them that helps shape us as individuals. An Old Norse text says, "Cattle die, kin die, but one thing I know that never dies, a good name. A life well lived and worth remembering, full of adventure, exploration, and the warmth of family and friends." That's what I take from my roots. My name is Robert Berge, and I'm a Vinlander, and these are my roots.